You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and he is Derek Vandygriff, here to talk a little bit of Ole Miss baseball. But before we talk about Ole Miss baseball, there's a couple of names that popped in the transfer portal that we're going to talk about. How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing better than Ole Miss baseball is after getting beat by USM.
No, man, we're doing all right. You know, we were sitting there saving arms out of the bullpen. We had a quick turnaround Thursday, Friday, Saturday, obviously coming up with LSU before the SEC tournament. So look, you know, it all comes down to this weekend in Baton Rouge. Regardless of what happened on Tuesday, you never want to lose a game. But in the grand scheme of things, as long as you take two this weekend in Baton Rouge, you've locked yourself into a regional for the most part. So that's where the focus was at. That's where my focus is at. And really excited to get this thing going on Thursday. LSU announced they were saving Luke Holloman for the second game on Friday to go against Liam Doyle. And I kind of thought that was interesting until I started looking. They've been doing that for like the last 5 weeks now. So I'm not real sure the reasoning behind of why you save your ace for the second game, but joke's on them because they actually get the pitcher in our rotation with the best stuff. And LSU's a team that really struggles against left-handed pitching, so it actually gives us an added advantage. So Jay Johnson thought he was being smart, but sounds like maybe Mike Bianco might have oopty-dooped him a little bit and taken the advantage away from him.
Well, before we get on to the baseball stuff, let's talk about the transfer portal players that coming in. They mentioned that this weekend, Pete Thamel said that Jacksonville State defensive lineman Chris Hardie is going to take an official visit to Ole Miss. He had 8.5 sacks, 16 tackles for loss a year ago. This is a pretty good player and is probably a sign that maybe Ole Miss has moved on from Tyler Barron.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. You know, maybe looking elsewhere outside of Barron. But look, I'm telling you, Chris is a good player. Out of all of the Jacksonville State games they played, of the 12 regular season games, 13 with the bowl game, I guarantee you I watched 9 or 10 of them. I'm familiar with Chris Hardie. He is really dynamic there on the defensive line. He can control the line of scrimmage. And when he gets into the backfield, he makes plays. He doesn't just disrupt timing and stuff like that. He gets back there, gets his hands on guys, and he actually makes plays. I was really impressed with him throughout the year last year. I know it's random that somebody from North Mississippi watches as much Jacksonville State as I ended up doing this past year. They were a really fun team to follow, though, and they were a really fun team to watch offensively and especially defensively, and ended up making quite a bit of money off of them. They were undervalued for about 3/4 of the year. The defense being the big reason why, I think, though, and Chris Hardie being a big reason for it. I was really impressed with him. Would be a really big get to go along with Nolan and Princely and all those other guys we've brought in throughout the portal to reshape this Ole Miss defense. So good on Kiffin and Golding and all those guys if they're able to pull that one.
Yeah, and anytime a player comes on campus, I'm just 50% that player is going to commit. It doesn't matter who they are, but that's just the way things have been going over recent recruitment. So if they get on campus, I'm just going to assume they're coming, essentially, and he is visiting this weekend. That's not the other name. They're trying to work to set up a visit with a running back from New Mexico State named Star Thomas. Now, this is a name that I've known about since the portal essentially opened up for a while. I talked about a running back that I could not name. This was that running back. He is 225 pounds. He is a thumper. He has 1 year of eligibility, and they're seeing if they can work it to where he has 2. Again, they're bringing in one and done type players to not spook a generational type running back, but this would be that short yardage, that change of pace running back. And maybe the reason Trent Howland and Penny Boone is not in Oxford right now is because this was the guy all along.
This is another guy that I watched a whole lot of this past football season as well out at New Mexico State. They were another really fun team to watch, particularly offensively. You got Pavila, he's over there at Vanderbilt now, the quarterback. This running back, though, like you said, he's like a bowling ball back there. He's really tough to get your hands on and get him to the ground. He's a between the tackles kind of guy. A really fun style of run, and one, quite frankly, you don't see just a whole lot anymore in today's football. Would be one heck of an addition to what kind of feels like a pretty loaded running back room already. I mean, yeah, you could make the argument, you need a little more depth, especially in the SEC. With the Bentley injury history, God forbid that comes up again, but it's always an option for not only Bentley, but other guys in that room as well. So, yeah, Starr, he's a really good player, would be a real big addition, and just give us more depth to an already loaded running back room, loaded offense in general. They've done such a good job of not only bringing in stars to start for this team, but guys to give them breathers and keep them fresh later in games, which is obviously a real big deal playing in the league that we play in.
Yeah, and he's a true thumper. I've been saying for weeks that Ole Miss needs a thumper. This would be a true thumper. He's not going to run for probably even 600 yards in a season, but what he is going to do is run for 20 yards a game, but they're going to be difficult 20 yards.
Yeah. He's a guy that's going to inflict a little bit of punishment on you, kind of make you think twice. When you step up and hit him once, that's on you, but you're going to think about it when he comes through the hole another time, and probably not bring your all again at that point. But again, great change of pace with the running backs that we have on campus right now, and it's a guy that rushed for just shy of 1,200 yards, if I'm not mistaken, at New Mexico State. He's not going to have that kind of workload, that kind of
I think that's in 2 years. Because he was a JUCO guy. Yeah, he was a JUCO guy.
Okay, well, still the fact remains though that, like you said, it's a guy that is going to make you think twice about hitting. He's going to lower his shoulder and he's going to go right at you. So that's going to be really fun to see if he ends up getting to Oxford, I guess I should say.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Derek, when we come back, we're going to talk about me not riding the roller coaster with Ole Miss baseball, and we will find out the top 5 Egg Bowl moments and games in series history. But first, Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets both faster and easier. Prices on Gametime actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation, job loss protection. This is the best customer service potentially out there in the ticketing world. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news, all streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, for the last 3 weeks, I'm not saying I'm off the bandwagon or anything like that. I'm saying I just quit riding the roller coaster with this baseball team because it's up and it's down and it's up and it's down. It's just exhausting. It got to the point where I was like, well, if they make a regional, they make a regional. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, well, I am fully strapped in, completely safe into that roller coaster. I'm riding it up, I'm riding it down, and I will continue to do so until the very last game of this season is played, whether that be next week in Hoover in the SEC tournament if Ole Miss doesn't take care of business this weekend in Baton Rouge, or in a regional, super regional, Omaha, whatever it ends up looking like in the postseason. But I will be riding the roller coaster with them. Really encouraging stuff from this team though. The last couple of weeks, they've really started playing better. Roles have been defined more, particularly in the bullpen. It's really shrunk as far as a committee goes. Not throwing near as many guys out there. Still a couple guys I'd like to see get some more opportunities out there to take a little bit of innings off of the bullpen. But with starting pitching the way it's going right now, last weekend we ended up getting 17 innings total out of the 3 starters for the weekend. When you do that, you can shrink your options in the bullpen and work with it from there. But yeah, I'm really encouraged with what this team's doing right now. Several hitters are locked in at the right time, and obviously the pitchers as well. So really excited to get this series going. I think Ole Miss wins Friday and Saturday for sure, or Thursday and Saturday for sure to win the 2 games, with a chance of taking that Friday game with Liam Doyle on the mound for a potential sweep. So I fully expect Ole Miss to get the job done this weekend and punch their ticket to a regional.
All right. So, Derek, you're on the hot seat today. We're doing the top 5 Egg Bowl moments / games in history. It's the top 5. We're going to go from 5 to 1. So here we go. Number 5.
All right, number 5, we're going to go back to the year 2013. Hugh Freeze's first Egg Bowl, right? The program was down and out coming out of the Houston Nutt era. A couple really bad seasons, obviously. We're hired Hugh Freeze, and it's not like he had this unbelievable year taking us to these heights we've never seen. Did a really solid job, though. Brings in a quarterback by the name of Bo Wallace. Gets a guy by the name of Dante Moncrief to buy into what's going on in his second year into the program there. And that's the feed Moncrief year, right? What an incredible game he ended up having. 7 catches for 173 yards, 3 touchdowns. Bo Wallace goes for 294 and 5. The vault was absolutely rocking that night. Everybody was so excited to finally get the golden egg back into Oxford, and it was just a really good start to the Hugh Freeze era, and kind of foreshadowing what was to come, at least in the short term, the few years after that, with Sugar Bowl Burts and all that coming up. But all kind of felt like it started that night. That was one of my favorite memories in Vaught Hemingway Stadium, was the 2013 Egg Bowl.
Number 4.
Number 4, we'll go back to 2008. Speaking of Houston Nutt, he had himself a day in 2008. Ole Miss ends up winning 45-0, and what was probably still to this day the most dominating football game I've ever seen in my entire life. Nobody on, I say nobody, I'm not convinced any 3 people on this planet could have blocked Perea Jerry that day. An absolute animal down there in the trenches on the defensive line. Ends up holding Mississippi State to negative 64 yards rushing by the time it's all said and done. That poor quarterback for State, I'm trying to think of his name, Tyler Russell.
It's Tyson Lee and Wesley Carroll. Those are the 2.
That's it. Yeah.
I was concerned for him that day.
Tyson Lee did not wait to get out of that thing, man. By the time he got back to the post game, he was all bloodied and busted up in his lips. Just got the fire beat out of him that game between Jarrell Poe, Perea Jerry. I believe Marcus Tillman was on that team too, if I'm not mistaken. Just an unbelievable defensive line there in 2000. Yeah, Greg Hardie, whenever he decided he wanted to play, he was about as unblockable as they come as well. So that was a lot of fun watching that game too. 45-0, negative 64 rushing yards. Just total dominance from start to beginning. And it's one of the few times that you'll see a blowout like that where not a single fan was leaving the stadium before that final horn went off. Everybody wanted to see more, and more that day.
Yes. Number 3.
Number 3, go back to 1997. I saw a tweet the other day from you, Stephen. Who was the quarterback from the first Ole Miss game that you ever saw, attended, whatever it may have been? First person that came to mind for me was Stuart Patridge. He's the first quarterback I remember for Ole Miss, and he was leading the charge there in 1997. But here in 1997, before this game ever got going, we had a hotshot recruit from Mississippi State decide he wanted to pop off to a guy named Deuce McAllister, and Deuce wasn't having any of that day. Okay, he was
didn't work out for him.
Up going into it. He did not work out for him. Deuce had to lay the law down on him a little bit. They had to carry that poor kid out of the stadium. So give me the 1997 pregame brawl as my number 3 Egg Bowl moment.
Number 2.
Number 2, you know it well. 1983, right? The Immaculate Deflection. It was before my time. I'm not much for putting stuff
I was there
on lists. Like, look at you. There you go. My boss was there too. I hear about that story all the time. He actually didn't get to see the kick not go through because he was looking the other way. He was so scared at the time. So I get to hear about that all the time. But
there's about 300,000 people that were there now.
Yeah, that's right. But usually when something happens, but before I was born, I won't put it on the list. This was such an iconic moment, though, right? My favorite part of watching all the videos is, of course, I've gone back and watched everything imaginable from the Immaculate Deflection year. So many people talk about it. Was Billy Brewer going up to Emory and say, Emory, I've always told you God is an Ole Miss Rebel, right? And he blew that thing back through the uprights for us. Rebels walk away with the victory when it looked like we were dead to rights for sure. So the 83 Immaculate Deflection has to be on everybody's top 5 list, I would think.
Number 1.
We're going back to a game we've already talked about. 1997 again, Stephen. What a game that was. Again, Stuart Patridge, the quarterback. You had Corey Peterson out there at receiver, and Patridge ends up hitting Roan for a touchdown to pull within 1, right? All we got to do is kick an extra point, send the sucker into overtime, and the Riverboat Gambler holds up those 2 fingers. And I'm not sure I've ever seen Jackie Sherrill in a bigger state of shock than he was on the sideline at that particular time when he saw he was sending the offense back out there. Of course, we go on to hit Corey Peterson for the 2-point conversion, go on to win the game. It's my number 1 moment because I clearly remember to this day sitting down watching that game with my brother and my dad, and my dad being so excited, obviously, that we had gotten that 2-point conversion. He jumps out of his recliner. He's on his knees. We have carpet all in the living room, and he's just scooting across that carpet as fast as he can. By the time he got up, I mean, from his shins to his knees, didn't have no darn skin left, just carpet burned from one end to the other. Didn't care, though. We were all celebrating that night, so I'll take the 1997 2-point conversion as my number 1 Egg Bowl moment.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Derek Vandygriff joining the show like he always does. What have you got going on Digs in the Dugout, bud?
Yeah, me and Hitch just got done recording a little while ago. Talked a good bit about Southern Miss, the Tuesday night game. Tried not to stay on it too long, but you know how it is when we get to talking. We start rambling a little bit. I looked up and we were 22 minutes in. I hadn't said the first word about LSU, so ended up having to cut that off and diving into the LSU series. So there's a good bit of coverage there between the Southern Miss game and the upcoming LSU series. What we expect to see, pitching matchups. A couple of guys out for revenge against LSU. Luke Hill being the Baton Rouge native, Will Furness, obviously his dad playing there. Both of them really want to perform well in Baton Rouge, and just what it means as a whole to go in there and get to after the way this season has started and find their way into postseason play. So that should be up for y'all. I think it's premiering at 6 o'clock here on a Wednesday night.
Also, Will Furness, I hope he hits a bomb in Alex box.
I hope he hits 10.
Yeah, just a tank, just something that you remember. Yeah, I want him something that's like his dad goes, well, I never hit one that far. Yeah, I want that.
Yeah, me too. That'd be a lot of fun.
All right, Derek, take care and thank you a lot, man.
Appreciate it, buddy.